In 1977, Steven Spielberg dropped a movie that was less sci-fi spectacle and more cosmic delirium, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It wasn't just about aliens, it was about obsession, chaos, and a director who practically willed this film into existence against impossible odds. Today, we open up 20 weird facts you never knew about Close Encounters, from near disasters on set to secrets hiding in plain sight on screen. Number 1. Potato sculpting was spontaneous. Richard Dreyfuss gave us one of cinema's strangest dinner scenes, carving Devil's Tower out of mashed potatoes while his family looked on in horror. But here's what many don't know. It wasn't scripted. Spielberg had written a vague note about Roy being compelled to build. But on the day, Dreyfuss suddenly grabbed his fork and started sculpting. Spielberg didn't yell cut. He leaned in, whispering to the crew to just keep rolling. The awkward silence, the kids staring, Teri Garr looking disturbed, all of that was authentic. What could have been a throwaway bit of improv became the film's most iconic metaphor: obsession taking over the ordinary. Dreyfuss later joked he felt ridiculous playing with potatoes, but the rawness worked. Instead of feeling staged, it feels uncomfortably real. A man losing touch with reality, one forkful at a time. Number 2. A cameraman injured in an India crowd. One of the film's most epic moments was shot in India, where hundreds of extras chanted to welcome the sky people. It looks electric on screen, but behind the camera, things got dangerously real. The energy of the crowd became overwhelming, and in the crush of bodies, a cameraman was knocked down and actually trampled. Spielberg later admitted it was a scary moment because the extras were so caught up in the intensity that they didn't even notice. The crew had to drag him out before the situation got worse. Thankfully, he recovered, but the shot they captured still made the cut. That's why the scene feels so raw. The tension, the chaos, and even the panic bled right into the frame. Spielberg didn't need to fake a mob, he had a genuine one. Number 3. Aliens played by children. You probably remember those spindly, otherworldly creatures stepping off the mothership, all long arms, tilting heads, and strange, almost innocent movements. Spielberg could have used puppets or animatronics, but instead, he went with something far weirder. 6-year-old kids in custom alien suits. Think about it. The way children move is naturally unpredictable. A little stumble here, a curious lean there. Spielberg knew no amount of choreography could beat that authenticity. When you watch the scene, those slight, unbalanced motions give the aliens a mix of grace and creepiness. They're not monsters, but they're not fully human either. And here's the thing. The kids had no idea how unsettling they looked under those giant heads and flowing costumes. To them, it was just dress up. To us, it's pure nightmare. Spielberg got kids to play aliens, but the next part of the story isn't about tiny performers at all, because in the next fact, you'll step inside the mothership itself and discover the hidden secrets Spielberg tucked away for only the sharpest eyes. Number 4. The mothership's hidden Easter eggs. At first glance, the mothership looks like a cathedral of light, symmetrical, divine, almost too perfect to be real. But if you pause and look closer, Spielberg and his model team hid something mischievous. Carved into the surface of this holy ship are Easter eggs, a tiny R2-D2 from Star Wars, a shark as a nod to Jaws, even a miniature mailbox and submarine. It's almost comical, like the filmmakers couldn't resist winking at the audience through their own art. What's fascinating is that these details were never meant to be noticed during the movie. They're buried in the textures, hidden among the glowing panels. Yet once you know they're there, you can't unsee them. It transforms the mothership from an alien object into a kind of cinematic scrapbook. Just a reminder that even in its most mysterious moments, Spielberg was still having fun. Number 5. Nobody wanted the starring role. You'd think every actor in Hollywood would kill to headline Spielberg's next big movie after Jaws, right? Wrong. The role of Roy Neary was basically radioactive. Spielberg first went to Steve McQueen, who flat out refused, saying he couldn't cry on cue, and Roy needed that vulnerability. Then came a laundry list of Hollywood heavyweights: Dustin Hoffman, Al Pacino, Jack Nicholson, Gene Hackman, James Caan, all turned it down. Spielberg was left scrambling until his old Jaws star Richard Dreyfuss started campaigning hard for the part. Dreyfuss basically begged Spielberg, saying he was born to play Roy. Eventually, Spielberg caved, and the rest is sci-fi history. So the everyman face of UFO obsession we all know today? That only exists because a dozen A-listers said, "No thanks." Sometimes rejection is exactly what a movie needs to land the perfect star. Number 6. Tourists flooded Devil's Tower. When Close Encounters hit theaters, audiences weren't just captivated by UFOs and flashing lights. They became obsessed with a rock. Devil's Tower in Wyoming went from being a quiet national monument to a full-blown pop culture landmark almost overnight. People saw Richard Dreyfuss carving it out of mashed potatoes, then later watched the mothership descend over its massive flat top, and suddenly, they had to see it for themselves. Tourism skyrocketed. Families packed their cars, road trippers detoured across states, and park rangers had to deal with a flood of movie fans all pointing at the same peak and whispering, "It's real." Spielberg didn't just make a sci-fi classic, he accidentally turned Devil's Tower into one of the hottest roadside attractions in America. It stopped being just a rock and became a symbol of Hollywood magic crashing into real life. Fans swarmed Devil's Tower like it was the eighth wonder of the world. But the next fact isn't about crowds at all. Get ready for one of the most painstaking creation of the 5 magical tones that told aliens, "We come in peace, maybe." Number 7. The memorable 5-note tones took a long time to figure out. Forget laser beams or sci-fi translators. In Close Encounters, first contact came down to 5 notes. That haunting little sequence wasn't random. Spielberg wanted something universal, something that felt simple enough for anyone or anything to recognize. So he brought in composer John Williams, who actually teamed up with a mathematician to break down the possibilities. They sifted through thousands of combinations, searching for the one pattern that was memorable, balanced, and weirdly friendly. Out of all the noise, 5 tones emerged. Just 5. That's what Spielberg called the universal handshake. It wasn't just music. It was math, communication, and hope wrapped into a tiny phrase. And decades later, if you hum those 5 notes in a crowded room, chances are somebody will hum them right back. Number 8. The aliens spoke dolphin. When the aliens finally speak in Close Encounters, it doesn't sound like anything you've heard in sci-fi before. No robotic beeps, no booming cosmic voices. Instead, it's this odd, warbling sound, almost playful. That's because the sound designers based their alien language on dolphins. Yep, those chirps and squeals came straight from recordings of dolphin cries, blended with a series of carefully tweaked electronic tones. Spielberg loved the idea that the most intelligent creatures on Earth outside of humans could lend their voices to something otherworldly. It gave the aliens a sense of innocence and curiosity instead of menace. So the next time you hear the extraterrestrials talking in the movie, listen closely. You're really hearing Flipper just dressed up with a synthesizer. Turns out the key to sounding alien was hiding in Earth's oceans all along. Number 9. Spielberg was Truffaut's English teacher. Casting legendary French director François Truffaut as the gentle scientist, Claude Lacombe was a bold move. He had the perfect presence, calm, authoritative, and deeply human. There was just one catch. Truffaut barely spoke English. On set, this became a challenge. Truffaut sometimes struggled to deliver his lines in a way that felt natural, so Spielberg personally coached him through the dialogue. The two would huddle off camera, Spielberg patiently guiding him word by word, often acting out the tone he wanted. Crew members later recalled these moments as oddly tender, a young American director helping a French cinema giant find his footing in Hollywood. The result? Lacombe comes across as soft-spoken, even poetic, which is exactly how Spielberg wanted him. Truffaut's limited English actually became an asset, making his character sound more deliberate, more profound. Number 10. Smoke tanks made the sky come alive. Those glowing skies in Close Encounters look like pure sci-fi sorcery, but they weren't CGI. They weren't even digital because in 1977, none of that existed. Instead, Spielberg's team built massive smoke tanks and blasted beams of colored light through them. By carefully layering smoke density and shining different hues, the effect created rolling, luminous clouds that looked otherworldly. It was practical movie magic at its finest. Cinematographer Vilmos Zsigmond would wait for just the right swirl of smoke, then call for the cameras to roll before it dissipated. Every shot was unpredictable, almost like trying to capture lightning in a bottle. The payoff: those UFO arrivals felt alive, glowing, shifting, mysterious. And all it took was smoke, lights, and a ton of patience. Spielberg turned a fog machine into the heavens opening. Before we get back to the mind-blowing secrets of Close Encounters, laser that like button if you've ever stared at the sky wondering, are we really alone? And don't forget to subscribe because the next facts will take you even closer to the mothership. Number 11. Spielberg put his own fear on screen. That wide-eyed moment when Richard Dreyfuss's character stares at the glowing sky? That wasn't just cinema. That was Spielberg literally projecting his own childhood fear onto the screen. As a kid, Spielberg would lie awake staring at the stars, half in wonder, half in dread. What if something was really up there? What if it was looking back? That sense of awe, tangled with fear, became the heartbeat of Close Encounters. So when Roy Neary freezes in his truck, bathed in alien light, you're not just watching a character. You're watching Spielberg relive his own nights of nervous stargazing. That's why it hits so hard. It's not just sci-fi spectacle. It's a childhood anxiety, scaled up to cosmic proportions. Spielberg made the sky both magical and terrifying. Number 12. It was Spielberg's divorce movie. Spielberg once called Close Encounters his UFO divorce movie. And if you look closely, it makes perfect sense. Beneath the flashing lights and flying saucers, this is a story about a family breaking apart. Roy's obsession with the sky pulls him further and further away from his wife and kids until they literally walk out the door. That emotional fracture wasn't just screenwriting. It was Spielberg working through his own childhood trauma. His parents' divorce had left him with a deep sense of rupture, and he buried that pain inside the story. So while audiences gasped at UFOs and glowing motherships, Spielberg was telling a much quieter, more personal tale, how obsession and loss can tear a family to pieces. The aliens may have been fiction. The heartbreak? That was real. Number 13. It was initially a very different movie. Before Close Encounters became the soulful, wide-eyed alien contact story we know, Spielberg was chasing something darker. His first draft, called Watch the Skies, was less about wonder and more about paranoia. Think, a gritty, Watergate-era political thriller, shadowy government types scrambling to cover up UFO sightings while ordinary people were caught in the crossfire. But Spielberg realized something was off. The thriller approach was too cold, too cynical, and it didn't match the sense of awe he wanted audiences to feel. So he pivoted. Out went the conspiracy-heavy angle, and in came an intimate, emotional story about obsession, family, and the possibility of connection across worlds. That shift transformed Close Encounters from a paranoid 1970s drama into one of the most hopeful sci-fi films ever made. The conspiracy thriller died and the dreamer's tale was born. Spielberg almost gave us a Cold War thriller instead of a heartfelt alien story. But the next fact isn't about what almost was, it's about how Close Encounters got its very real-world name, pulled straight from UFO research that inspired the dreamer's tale we ended up loving. Number 14. The title came from real UFO research. The title Close Encounters of the Third Kind isn't some Hollywood invention. It actually comes straight out of UFO research. Dr. J. Allen Hynek, a respected astronomer who consulted on the film, created a classification system for alien encounters. First kind, you see a UFO. Second kind, there's physical evidence left behind. Scorched earth, radiation, weird marks. And the third kind, that's face-to-face contact with extraterrestrials. Spielberg loved the scientific credibility of Hynek's system. It grounded his movie in real-world terminology, making it sound less like science fiction and more like science possibility. Talk about art imitating science. Number 15. Hynek cameo on screen. Dr. J. Allen Hynek wasn't just the brain behind the phrase "close encounters of the third kind." He actually steps into Spielberg's movie. You can spot him in the climactic finale at Devil's Tower, standing among the throng of scientists as the mothership lands. Hynek had spent years as the go-to UFO consultant for the U.S. government, investigating strange sightings for Project Blue Book. His presence here wasn't about acting chops, but for UFO buffs, it's the ultimate Easter egg. Number 16. Spielberg used tricks to get the performance out of his child actor. Cary Guffey was just 3 years old when Spielberg cast him as Barry Geiler, the little boy who wanders straight into an alien ship. But here's the catch. Guffey had never acted before. Spielberg had to get creative. For the terrifying kitchen scene, Spielberg staged a surprise. Behind cardboard blinds, he hid 2 crew members, one in a clown suit, the other in a gorilla costume.
Then I unveiled the clown, and then I signaled for the box to be taken off of the gorilla. He took a step back and he gets completely, and then I whispered, "Take off your head." And the makeup man took off his head, and Cary saw that his friend, the makeup man, was inside the gorilla suit, and then the smile erupted. And that's one take, you can't do that twice.
He dropped the blinds one by one, clown first, then gorilla, and the boy's fear was genuine. But when the gorilla pulled off his mask to reveal a familiar makeup artist, Guffey cracked up. Spielberg got exactly what he needed. But the next fact isn't about coaxing reactions at all. Number 17. Shot in a disused Air Force hangar. To bring the mothership's landing to life, Spielberg didn't just build a set. He built a city inside a cave. The production moved into a gigantic, abandoned World War II Air Force hangar in Mobile, Alabama. This monster of a building stretched 300 feet long and 300 feet wide, with ceilings towering high enough to swallow skyscrapers. The space was so vast that crews could control light, fog, and scale without worrying about the outside world bleeding in. It became the perfect canvas for the glowing, otherworldly landing strip where humans and aliens finally meet. But here's the wild part. The hangar was so massive it actually created its own weather system inside. Crews battled condensation and dripping rain that sometimes ruined takes. Still, it gave Spielberg the kind of jaw-dropping, cathedral-like backdrop you just couldn't fake. That iconic finale, it all happened in a forgotten military shell. Number 18. Bought and sold the Neary house for profit. For Spielberg, even the Neary family's house wasn't just a set. It was an investment. Columbia Pictures actually bought the suburban Indiana home outright for filming, shelling out $35,000. The crew transformed it into the chaotic, toy-strewn battlefield where Roy's obsession with UFOs pushes his family to the brink. But here's the slick Hollywood twist. Once production wrapped, they didn't just pack up and leave. The studio sold the place for $50,000, pocketing a tidy $15,000 profit. And instead of pocketing it personally, Spielberg funneled that money right back into the movie's ballooning budget. So every time you watch Roy melting down in that kitchen or building mountains of mashed potatoes in the dining room, remember those walls weren't just scenery. They were a real house, flipped like a piece of real estate to keep Spielberg's UFO epic afloat. Number 19. Meryl Streep could have played Roy's wife.
Come on in!
Dad, after this, can we throw dirt in my window?
Imagine Close Encounters with Meryl Streep in the cast. It almost happened. Back then, she wasn't the award-sweeping icon we know today, just a fresh Yale Drama School graduate hustling through auditions. Spielberg saw plenty of actresses for the role of Ronnie, Roy's stressed-out wife, and Streep was in the mix. But she lost out to Teri Garr, who landed the part in the most unexpected way. Spielberg spotted her in a coffee commercial. Just 30 seconds of her juggling emotions, warmth, frustration, tenderness, convinced him she could embody Ronnie's exasperation at Roy's UFO obsession. Looking back, it's wild to think this small supporting role could have been Streep's big break. Instead, Garr nailed it, and Streep's rise to legend just came a little later. Proof that even icons sometimes start with near misses, On the final fact here, we leave near misses and what could have been behind, because the next reveal dives into Spielberg's own dissatisfaction. He wasn't happy with the version of Close Encounters that first hit theaters. Number 20. Spielberg didn't like the version that was initially released. Believe it or not, Steven Spielberg wasn't happy with the version of Close Encounters that audiences first saw in 1977. He wanted a summer 1978 release so he could polish the film's edit and complete the special effects, but Columbia Pictures was in financial crisis and demanded it be rushed out for November 1977. That left Spielberg with a cut he considered unfinished. 3 years later, the studio offered him a second chance under one big condition. They wanted to show the inside of the Mothership, a marketing hook to sell a new special edition. Spielberg agreed, adding new material, but privately admitted he hated that forced scene. Eventually, when home video arrived, he created the collector's edition, which removed the Mothership interior entirely. So, the definitive version of Close Encounters is really Spielberg's third attempt, proof that even masterpieces can be works in progress. Bonus fact: Spielberg almost went full CGI. Before practical effects took over, Spielberg experimented with something groundbreaking: early CGI. He had animator Colin Cantwell spend 3 weeks crafting a single shot of 3 UFOs hovering over a stadium, a digital first in cinema history. The result? Stunning, but way too ambitious for a whole movie. The tech just couldn't handle it. So while audiences marveled at real-life miniatures and glowing motherships, Spielberg came this close to making Close Encounters one of the very first CGI-heavy films. And there you have it. Close Encounters of the Third Kind isn't just a movie about UFOs and flashing lights. It's a behind-the-scenes odyssey full of near misses, bizarre choices, and wild Hollywood what-ifs. This movie was as much a close encounter with chaos as it was with aliens. What's most incredible is how it all came together. Despite money problems, casting nightmares, and even gorilla and clown jump scares for a toddler actor, Spielberg turned all that madness into one of the most iconic science fiction films ever made. But now, let's hear from you. Which fact blew your mind the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more movie secrets.
Wow, that was weird.